And hello everyone, welcome back to another build video for Robocraft. Now, at the moment, we're in Tier 1 because I haven't actually placed anything down. I suppose the first question that we have for my creativity today is what tier are we going to be playing in? The best place to start, I suppose, with that would be to pick a colour. We have used a lot of our Tier 7 and Tier 8 blocks. We don't have many Tier 6. We hardly have any Tier 5. We got an awful lot of Tier 4. Now the question is, what could we build in Tier 4? We would have access to aerofoils, which is nice. We would also have access to plasma, and we could go for a bomber or perhaps even an SMG. We would not have rotor blades, which is a bit of a shame, but we would definitely have some good shields. We'd have the T3s, T4 shields. I might even squeeze up into the T5s. I don't mind over-tiering just that tiny little bit as long as the technology itself is available. That is shielding as a whole. Okay, well, let's have a look at making a little micro flyer. Now, again, I have terrible trouble ever making anything that's small. So this will be difficult for me. We'll start with just a basic stick and build out the parts that we want to actually have components on. Now, with a stick like this, how many guns could we fit? We just want a rough idea, so it doesn't really matter what tier we use, though. Perhaps tier... I can't imagine us going any higher than Tier 6. So we'll use the Tier 6 guns as a bit of a indication. We could have 4... Tier 6 guns, like so. Okay, that would give us a reasonable punch, I suppose. Though I don't like having them quite split in a straight line. In fact, they probably won't be. So, don't worry about that. We might actually go for 3 Tier 7s. I doubt it, though. Or maybe just 3 Tier 6s. Now, we would put the aerofoils, I think. Let's see how large Tier 4 aerofoils are. Do we actually have any? No, we don't. Okay, well, we soon will. We will take 2 of you, and just in case we don't have 3 rudders, we'll buy them. I imagine we'll actually use more than that. I don't know. Again, we're trying to make a micro flyer here, so we don't really want to use that much. These aerofoils are actually quite small. How big are the rudders? Rudders are tiny. Okay, that's an interesting thing that we could do. Okay, I've got a bit of an idea. We'll go with a 4 aerofoil system. That'll give us a lot of lift, a lot of redundancy as well, because if some of our airfoils are shot off, then we can have them be replaced. Now, I would like 1 there, and the other one to just be nailed against the nose of the craft, around there. The other about here, perhaps? Actually, let's bring it back. About there. Okay, so this is already not a microflyer. In fact, let's not do that. Let's push this forward a little bit. Now, yes, there are curved cubes, and I will be trying to make use of those for this video. Let's see. We are actually going to need to buy some of those curved cubes. Let's go ahead and buy a couple of you. Couple of you. We'll go for 100 of each. There. These are nothing once you start earning money up in Tier 10. You will have stupid amounts of cash available to you. We'll just have some... See, the thing with the curves is you can do some interesting stuff with it. But it's not always particularly curvy. I mean, you can either have a hard edge or a rounded cube, really. You can't have a smooth edge in the sense of a more subtle curve, which is a bit of a shame. Right, we want to bring this out a little bit, and I'm thinking... I like the idea of this. Now, if we were to use curves there, I guess it isn't so bad. And then maybe have the hard edge in there. Yeah, that isn't so terrible, I suppose. Might be even better if I did that. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, we'll see. Now again, I'm trying to remind myself. Go for small. Don't try to just add loads of bits on it and make it basically a sky tank again. You don't want a sky tank, Avak. It's not what this bot is meant for. We'll do something like this. As a result, it is going to be flimsy compared to my other bots. So that is a concern, certainly. There we are. That actually looks quite nice. Now, how would this work? No. That doesn't look too bad, though. You know what? That actually looks intentional. We could even use a different color for that. I'll have a think of that. Now, down the bottom here, we kind of want shields, but the problem is we've only got one wide. So we're going to remove all of these down. And where we're going to want shields, we'll add a little platform for them. And same here, I would say. Like that. Now, the shields that we're going to want are going to be the T4 shields. So let's grab, this is the left side, so we could put it over there. See, it would be better if we had that about there. So it feels like no matter where I put this, we're going to have issues. Yeah. Maybe I should pull this out a little bit. I'm hesitant to do this. I really am. But for the sake of being able to put the shields in the right place, I'm willing to give it a try. And we'll see how well it works once we're actually out there and flying. Right, so we'll do something like that. I imagine there's a couple of people like, oh, Avak, you almost had it right. You almost managed to resist your urge to make it huge. It's true. I did. Almost. One day we'll work on it together. One day I will fix this problem I have. And we can have that there. Let's actually have you on this side. Can I get you? No? Can I get you? Can I maybe get you to go the right way? Oh wait, of course. Just because it's on the right side doesn't mean it's the right version of the... some days. Some days. I wonder if I've got a brain at all. Okay, that's not terribly bad. We could also have some of these aiming backwards. That might be nice. Like that. Yeah, okay. That actually looks quite good. In fact, we can do this. Oh, that looks great. That actually genuinely looks good. That's fantastic. Okay, so we've got plenty of protection, but the thing that we lack now is forward, is basically thrust. Now, where are we going to be able to fit these? We're in tier 4. We don't really want to creep too high into tier 5. But I'm thinking tier 5 thrusters? Maybe tier 6 thrusters? Let's grab 5 of each. Actually, no, let's grab 6 of each so we can be symmetrical. We'll also grab another 6 tier 4s, because I imagine I'll be using those, if for nothing else, my maneuvering thrusters. Now, how big are you? You're actually quite large. We could move that down here instead, like so. So we could have a nice old tier 6 thruster maybe in there. That does push us very fast towards tier 5. Would a tier 5 thruster do much the same? Not nearly as aggressively. Okay, well, I'm happy with that. We'll be dropping that in favor... Oh, we won't. Wow, damn. Okay. That won't be helped by what I had before. So, how about I do something like this? We're extending the vehicle slightly. By slightly, I mean a lot. But still, it may work out for us. I'll have that there. You can be positioned there then. Then we can have our thrusters in here. We can't have another one there, which is a shame. But we might be able to fit in a tier 4. Yes. Okay, well, that's not too bad. We do need maneuvering thrusters, though. And those, ideally, would be at the front. Not at the back. But we can have those on top if we really want to. Yeah, and I see no reason not to. Okay, this has become a fairly long vehicle now. And this is the point where I start to worry that I'm going against what I started out to try and do by adding in these platforms for my plasmas. But at the same time, I think they're worth putting there. But maybe I don't need it quite that large of a platform. Certainly don't need that large of a platform back there. But this is a useful little spot there for a thruster. Right there. I don't have many useful little places like that over on this side. Oh, actually, no, I do. Okay. I accept. And perhaps then we could have this there. We could have our plasmas on these little platforms there. So we want to grab... Let's grab the tier 5s, because we're in tier 5. Well, we're in tier 5 now. I may as well not try to resist. I'll place one there, one there, one there. We've got 6 tier 6 plasmas. One tier 7 would just push us well over the allotment there. We could have it at the front, though. And followed up by 2 tier 6s. That'll give us a fair bit of wallop. However, as I said, I don't actually want all of the guns to be along the same line. Otherwise, it becomes harder and harder and harder to not shoot my own guns. Since we've pulled that back, though, we no longer need this huge platform there. So let's dial that back. Although we're exposing the neck here to vulnerability, I might be overcompensating for my usual thing of making the bots too heavy. And I am aware that that is a distinct possibility. But by leaving that there, hopefully the thruster will be able to absorb some damage and won't necessarily result in immediate destruction. But I am a little bit concerned about it. In fact, these little thrusters there, more shields perhaps? Now the problem is these shields are heavy. I am aware of that. You wouldn't think I am, but I am. Oh, that's actually quite a nice pattern. Unintentional, but quite nice. But, now the thing is, these shields are probably surplus to demand. They're not actually protecting anything. Have we got anything better that we could put there? Got some tier 5 shields. But they really don't serve a purpose there. What about tier 3s? Unfortunately, no. I mean, I could get the tier 3s to kind of scoop down and protect that thruster. The tier 2 electroplates, again, Well, maybe. Let's have a quick look. Where would I need to put this to have these... Ah, wait, no, they'll interfere with the forward gun. Never mind. In fact... Well, those are going to be the only shields that I can have there, then. That will work. Whether it's worth doing, I don't know. It's a fairly heavy bot now, I would imagine. And that's more or less against what I was aiming for. Let's quickly buy another pilot seat. Again, I wish the free cubes could just be used without having to specifically purchase them. Now, this gives us a couple of options. We could have some more aerofoils if we really wanted to. Some redundancy, basically. Give us a little bit of a seat. Actually, we'll have a proper seat at the back, but at the front, let's not. Let's try and continue going for... Yeah, let's actually have that there. Have these there. I actually kind of like the curve with the sharper edges. And yes, I know. I'm adding all of this on, even though I'm complaining about the weight. I do appreciate how stupid that is. But we could add this in there, and that would probably combat the weight quite nicely. Or even just some more redders. Yeah, actually, I think the idea of having some more redders is nice. Probably completely surplus to demand, but still nice. Grab another 4 of you. And another 4 of you. Okay. Let's have a quick look then. If we place that right about there. Now the thing is, we want some more thrust along here. We're in tier 5 right now, so tier 5 thrusters are not going to hurt us too much. They're on tier for the tier we're in. Unfortunate thing is we're not easily going to be able to change the tier of the cubes that we're using. Or will we? It would be nice. It would certainly be nice. Unfortunately, that interferes with something. It interferes with the aerofoil. That is a shame. However, it won't interfere with the aerofoil here. So we've got downward thrust there. What I'd like is upward thrust right about there. That's fine. We'll do that then. There we go. So we can climb, we can descend, we can turn a little bit. You might not really want those turning thrusters in retrospect, but we're going to keep them. Ah, that would have been perfect. Why not? Oh, scallywags. Okay, well, we'll expand this out then. Purely so we can have those attached there. And those attached there. Okay, well, let's see how this flies. My microfighter, my micro bomber, turned into actually quite a large bomber in the end. My goodness. Still, it's no I come in peace, and we can be thankful for that, I suppose. Alright, it's got a fair amount of firepower on it, and it is just in tier 5. I don't think we're pulling this into tier 6. I don't think we're going to be replacing cubes and getting this into tier 6. But let's take this out for a practice then. See how it can do. The other thing we also want to see is how it can right itself. There we go. Okay, good takeoff. Fairly maneuverable. Very maneuverable, in fact. Easily one of my most maneuverable vehicles. Or at least in terms of flyers. And it turns quite nicely. Okay, that was silly of me. Right, what's its desire? It wants to pull up. Actually, no, it wants to go steady. Yes, it wants to go steady. So it wants to do whatever I've told it to do, but it wants to do it a lot longer than I've asked it to. Basically, so if I leave it kind of pointed up, it's going to keep trying to climb. If I leave it pointing down, is it going to keep trying to fall? No. It'll... it's slowly stabilizing, but when you've got it stable, it neither tries to climb nor descend, which is actually quite good. I just need to reposition everything when I do. I need to make sure I don't leave it in a bad position, trying to climb all the time and then try to shoot. It won't work. But okay, I'm not too dissatisfied with this. Let's see how high we can go. An altimeter would be particularly good here. Have I stalled? Yes, I have. And we're descending. Cut power. Reorientate. No, no. It's not wanting to reorientate. There we go. How can it stop? It can stop relatively well. A little bit more stopping power might be nice. Now, the thing with this, we have no real wings, because usually with my flyers, I put all of the weapons under the wings, or on top of the wings. So, as a result, you've got the ability to repurpose for an SMG fairly easily. This is not the case with this little flyer, though. I don't think this one is going to be repositioning at all. Let's take you out. Sorry, repurposing for an SMG at all, unless you move a lot of the thrusters around. You still could do it. Maybe you could get rid of some of the underbelly shielding and create a platform for some SMGs. That's also a possibility. But I've built this more or less with a view to using it for plasma bombing. That was complete overshot. Well done. You flew right under my attack. Good tactics. Not an overwhelming amount of firepower, to be fair. But when that T7 hits, not too bad. Granted, these things are mostly made out of T1 cubes, so it's not a good test. Okay, well, I've had enough flying around. I'm fairly comfortable with how maneuverable this bot is. Could perhaps do with a tiny, tiny bit more reverse thrust. And that is the only thing that I think it needs. So, where could I fit this reverse thrust then? That is the question. If I got rid of that, put this there instead, could I have some reverse thrust there? Yes, I could. Okay. In fact, I wouldn't even need to get rid of that. That's rather glorious, if you ask me. Very glorious. Can I go there? No. No, it cannot. Well, okay, then fine. But I'm pretty happy with that, actually. Oh, my lord, really? Did that push me into tier 5? Tier 6? It did. Wow. Okay, well, we're not having that then. As much as I wanted it, that is a big old nope. It has been vetoed. Okay, well, we don't need it, strictly speaking. It would have been nice to have it, but we don't need it. The only thing that I can think of that would be nice is radar. That is almost a need. It isn't, again, strictly a need, but it's close enough to being one that I want to do my best to try and equip one. Even if it's nothing more than a tier 1 radar. Now, I should be able to fit that no matter what. This is asking for a lot. Yes, asking for too much. Also, not asking for much, but I can fit it down there. Tier 3 jammer. Aha. Okay. This is good. This is very good. We don't want to be seen if we can avoid it. Anywhere else? Come on, there's got to be another spot that I can fit you. I wish I could attach them to that surface right there. The angled surfaces would be glorious. There you go, free jam. That's my recommendation. You've added smooth, rounded cubes. That's fantastic. Now, we just need to be able to build on the flat surfaces of prisms. Alas, no. That's a shame. That would have looked awesome. Can I get... Well, no. That'll be the first thing shot off, those ones on the front there. But would have been awesome. Just saying. One will have to do us. I think. Let me just have one last peek. We might be able to fit one. There. Oh. Scallywags. That is not the word that was going through my mind to begin with. We could get rid of these, maybe. Pulse us back down. I noticed that sometimes that actually doesn't help nearly as much as you might think it would. You go with tier 3s instead. They've almost got the same... Well, no, actually, they've got a fair bit less. But for maneuvering, it's all you need. That's more than enough for us. So there we are. We've got 2 jammers, a radar, and generally speaking, pretty happy with it. Let's just make sure that that hasn't given us enough room to have a T5 radar. Maybe. No. No. Let's see. Will you work for us? You will possibly when I've bought more of you. There we go. Never be too afraid to down tier with things like this. I mean, these aren't strictly necessary. Down tiering my main thrusters, that would be a bit silly. Because these are there to... They're like a main function of this bot. But the slight down tiering of my maneuvering thrusters, my climb, my descent, and my left-right, given that my aerofoils and my rudder also perform those functions, just, you know, not as aggressively, is not a bad move. And in exchange, we've got a much, much better radar system. You know what else we could do, though? we could do this. Will this look a little bit better? I think it will. Yes. Yes, it will. I approve. And we can do this then as well. There we go. My little cockpit. Fantastic. Can we get something fit down there? I doubt it. That is a shame. Oh well. Right then. I'm pretty happy with this little bot as it is. But we've made some adjustments to the thrusters, and as is always the case, good practice in Robocraft is to practice whenever you make any change. Sometimes you can just assume it's not going to have a big effect, but with regards to balancing on aircrafts, that's never the case. If you change the thrusters, test the bot again. Honestly, it'll save you from terrible amounts of embarrassment. Trust me on that one. Really huge amounts of embarrassment are involved when you show up in a battle and suddenly realize, oh, my flyer can't get off the ground. Or it does get off the ground and goes straight into space. Never comes back. Those are bad times. I've seen it happen to many people. In fact, I'm fairly certain I've videoed it happening to many people. I may have even videoed it happening to myself once or twice, but it does happen to me a fair bit. And you know what? The only time it never happens to me is when I test the vehicle first. So, you know, pro tip. Right, okay. It hasn't thrown off our maneuverability. We're still incredibly agile. The only thing I don't know is how high we can go. Well, let's use those cliffs as a bit of a demonstration. Okay, this is about as high as we're going. We're fighting against it at this height. It's not amazing. But, I mean, most things down there are going to have a hard time seeing us. I think. Maybe. Oh, you stopped doing that. For some reason... Well, it's the simulation, I guess. It saves something by having them not actually be modeled driving along the ground until you look at them and then they try. But there we go. Our little bot is ready to leave the nest, I think. And as is the tradition at this point, I will leave the naming of this bot to chat. There is no particular theme other than it has to be something that flies or has something to do with flight. It doesn't necessarily need to fly. For example, an arrow flies but doesn't fly, if you see what I mean. But that is, it doesn't need to necessarily be flying under its own power. But any kind of thing, it doesn't need to be mythological, just needs to have flight. I will pick from the suggestions and we will name our bot that. But for the time being... As also is the tradition, this shall become the Hairbenu. There we go. So the Hairbenu shall be going back over to, I believe, episode 116. There will be an annotation on the screen somewhere to let you join me with this vehicle's maiden voyage. But that is it from this episode. I do hope you've enjoyed and will be joining me for the next. But until then, and as always... From myself and the Hairbenu, do take care.